Hello everyone and welcome to the video. I will be covering quarterbacks for the Week 2 Draftkings NFL main slate. Week 1 went really good for me. My main lineup cashed in double ups and GPPs. That lineup consisted of Carson Wentz, Cook, Carson, Boyd, Godwin, Westbrook, Hunter Henry, and Christian McCaffrey. Also Chargers defense. That was a total of, I think, 182.82 points. If you watched the videos from last week or followed me on my Twitter, hopefully you played a good amount of those guys too. Even players that didn't make my main lineup that I talked up, guys like Austin Eckler, they crushed. Guys that I wasn't as high on as the general public, like Curtis Samuel, I said was bad chalk and he was a bust last week. So there's a lot of good information to kick off the NFL season for all of my followers. Let's keep that rolling this week. All right, let's get into the position. We start off with Patrick Mahomes, 7.5K. He is the most expensive option going up against the Raiders. He picked up right where he left off last season. The reigning league MVP dropped 378 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks on the road against a good Jaguars defense. And that was without Tyreek Hill for most of the game, who got hurt in the first quarter. Vegas is all over this game as a high-scoring environment. The over-under, I think, is at 52 points last time that I looked. I'm not too concerned about having Hill in the lineup. He's still got good weapons in Kelsey and Watkins. And the Raiders defense, I think they played over their heads a bit against the Broncos. They're still a pretty bad defensive unit. If price was of no concern, Mahomes is probably my number one overall QB this week. In cash, I think there is an obvious play that I'll get to in a little bit, but in GPPs, I absolutely love Mahomes. The next guy that broke Twitter during the 1 o'clock games last week, that's Lamar Jackson at 6.7K, going up against the Cardinals. And, wow, what a performance. Perfect passer rating. 324 yards, 5 passing touchdowns, and he didn't even play in the fourth quarter because the game was a blowout at that point. Perhaps his biggest fantasy attribute, his running ability, was a total non-factor last week as he was sensational with his arm. If he's truly made big improvements as a passer in his sophomore season, the Ravens team could just be downright dangerous this season. And his matchup is a good one. There's nothing really worrisome about Arizona's defense. Baltimore has a big implied team total of, I think, 30. He's a threat for multiple touchdowns between the air and the ground. He is another great GPP option. Following Jackson, we have Deshaun Watson at 6.6K against the Jaguars. He was great Monday night against the Saints. It was a tough loss for them. What a crazy finish that was. Since Watson entered the league as a rookie in 2017, he's always been a very strong DFS quarterback with his ability to both pass and run the football. That has not been the case against Jacksonville, though. He has made 3 career starts against the Jags, and none of those performances were really that great. That shouldn't be too surprising. I know Mahomes just went off on this defense, but the Jaguars do remain one of the best defenses in the league, like they have been the last couple of seasons. That makes Watson a risky GPP play. Plenty of upside. Just know that there is some downside here as well. Aaron Rodgers at 6.5K, I also think is interesting in tournaments. Vegas is pretty mild on this game. The over-under is at 45, but it's still Aaron Rodgers in Lambeau Field against the Vikings defense that I think is a little bit overrated by most. Granted, I am a Packers fan, so maybe a little bit of bias here, but I don't think Rodgers is going to get much ownership at all this week. So I would try to take advantage of the low ownership and go a little bit overweight in GPPs. Tom Brady, 6.4K, going up against the Miami Dolphins. Another good fantasy performance by an all-time great in week 1 of the season. Now he gets the Dolphins, who were just annihilated by Lamar Jackson. And Brady should really have no problems shredding this defense as well. Patriots have a slate high 33-point implied team total, but the Patriots are such a well-balanced team. It's tough to know when they're going to be pass-heavy, when they're going to be run-heavy. The game script would seem to dictate a run-heavy approach here. And it's also worth mentioning that traveling to Miami is the one place that Brady seems to have some issues with. 7 wins, 10 losses as a starter. A fantastic GPP play, but just not for me in cash. Drew Brees at 6.2K against the Rams has to be on your radar as well this week. This has a slate high over-under at 54 points. This is a rematch of that highly controversial NFC Championship game. We don't have to rehash that non-call, but there's a narrative to this game that both teams are highly motivated to play each other if you believe in narratives. Outside of the Superdome, Brees is not as great on the road, and the Rams do have a good pass rush and secondary. But with this over-under, you need to have some Brees spread across your tournament lineups. On the opposite side of this game, we have Jared Goff at 5.9K against the Saints. A little bit earlier on in the video, I mentioned an obvious cash game play. Well, Jared Goff is that guy. I will re-emphasize that this game has a slight high 54-point over-under. The spread is tight with the Rams only favored by 2.5 points. And, like I said, narrative streak. I think this game shoots out. Goff has a ton of weapons and is coming off of a good season. I wouldn't pay too much attention to that Week 1 stat line. When I'm factoring in price and projection total, Goff is my clear number one quarterback for cash games this week. Ben Roethlisberger at 5.8K against Seattle is another interesting tournament option. Big Ben historically has done very well as a home favorite, which he is here. Not a great start last week. A lot of people are trying to attribute that to not having Antonio Brown around anymore. The offense certainly would be better with Brown, no doubt about it, but Ben still has some other weapons and should put up a good stat line going forward. Andy Dalton at 5.4K against the 49ers is another QB to consider for GPPs. He threw the ball 51 times last week. This looks like it might be a very pass-heavy offense, and they might be without Joe Mixon this week. The 49ers defense is not very imposing. I wouldn't talk you off Dalton if you're into it. Josh Allen at 5.3K against the Giants is a high-risk, high-upside option. He turned the ball over 4 times last week and still put up 20 fantasy points. And he finished last season on a tear. I think the last 6 weeks of the season, he was the highest-scoring DK quarterback. So there is the potential here for a huge game at a very low price. And the last guy that I will mention is Derek Carr at 5.1K against the Chiefs. Should be a great game script spot. You just know the Chiefs are going to score, so the Raiders are going to have to pass the ball to try to keep up. Despite all this Antonio Brown drama, the Raiders came out highly motivated on Monday night. The Chiefs defense still has a lot of issues. They can be exploited. So I like Carr to exceed value here with the volume of throws I'm projecting him to make. All right, that wraps up the video for this week. I hope you enjoyed it. I am only doing a quarterback video this week. For my takes on running back, wide receiver, tight end, and defense, please follow me on Twitter at clutch_DFS. I will be releasing those picks tomorrow morning before the slate locks. Also, feel free to ask me any questions on there, and I'll be sure to respond. Thanks again for watching, and good luck in your contest.